magic ring right here. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to wrap it around 2 fingers twice. So wrap around twice, grab that tail with your left hand, pick up your hook, insert it under the first loop, grab the second loop, and pull it under. If you need to pause and rewind, please do so. Remove your fingers and hold that loop in place, and now we can start crocheting. So go ahead and yarn over and pull through to chain 1. And now we're ready to start working into that ring. So that tail is going to stay off to the right, and we're going to work into the ring itself. So insert your hook in the ring, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through to single crochet. We're going to work 6 single crochets here into the ring itself. I like to hold with my left hand, my left thumb, hold the tail and the magic ring kind of in place while I'm holding the work. And just work 6 single crochets right into that magic ring. If you need to see slower tutorials on magic rings or single crochets, there's tons on YouTube. Just type in crochet magic ring or crochet single crochet, and you'll find lots of great tutorials. So after you've made 6, we're going to pull on that yarn tail to tighten down the loop. It should just cinch up nice and tight. We're not going to join or do any kind of slip stitch here. We're going to identify the very first stitch that we worked. Grab your stitch marker. I would insert this and leave it there, but we're going to work into that stitch right now to start round 2. But this is how you would insert your stitch marker. So that first stitch that we worked, the first single crochet of the 6, that's what we're going to work into now. And we're going to work 2 single crochets in the very same spot. That's called an increase. So here is the first single crochet. And now the second single crochet, both into the same exact stitch to increase. Go ahead and yank on that tail again to make sure that your magic ring is staying tight. So we have 2 in the same stitch there. And try not to drop your hook. I'm going to place my stitch marker in the first of the 2 stitches I just made. So not the one right next to my hook, but the one behind it, because that was the first stitch of our round. The next stitch is also going to get 2 single crochets, or an increase. So in the written pattern, you'll see that it says increase around, or the abbreviations that say increase around. And all that means is 2 single crochets in each stitch, each of those 6 stitches. So you should wind up with 12 here on round 2. And all we're doing right now is making a flat circle, which is a series of kind of patterned increases that I'm going to show you in this video. It's simple once you get the hang of it, but it can take a little bit of counting and a little bit of thinking the first few times you do it. So if you haven't made a flat circle before, this is a great way to learn. Okay, so into that last stitch now, 2 single crochets. You'll know when you've finished the round because you should come back to that stitch that has a stitch marker in it. And at this point is when you should count the stitches in your round, and you should have 12. It's easy to count them by counting the 2 V's sitting on top of each stitch. Remove your stitch marker, and now we're going to begin round 3 by working 2 single crochets in the first stitch, or an increase, just like what we've been doing. Take a moment to put your stitch marker back where it goes in the first stitch you worked. And now instead of doing increases all the way around, we're going to alternate. So we just did an increase. Now the next stitch is going to get just 1 single crochet. So that reads in the pattern like increase and then single crochet 1. So that means into 1 stitch. Now we're just going to repeat that around. So an increase, or 2 single crochets in the same stitch, and then single crochet 1. Only 1 single crochet in the following stitch. Next is an increase. We're just going to repeat this all the way around. And then single crochet 1. This round should have 18 stitches in it by the time you're done. From here on out, our rounds are going to increase each time by 6 more stitches. So round 2 had 12 stitches, round 3 has 18, and so on. But I'll walk you through all of those rounds, so don't worry. Continue alternating increases and single crochet 1. I hope that this explanation might be helping those of you that can't read patterns or have trouble reading patterns as I'm walking you through it. If you have trouble reading patterns, I strongly suggest that you at least look at the written pattern so that you can familiarize yourself with it and having me walk you through it while also looking at the written instructions might be helpful. So now that we've gotten back to our stitch marker, count your stitches here, and then remove your stitch marker and begin round 4. We're going to work an increase in the first stitch as we've been doing. Take a moment to replace your stitch marker. We've worked an increase. Now we're going to single crochet 2. So that means 1 single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So there's the first and then the second stitch, each getting 1 single crochet only. Increase, single crochet, single crochet. And now we're going to repeat that around. So increase, which again means 2 single crochets in the same stitch, and now single crochet 2, which means 1 single crochet in each of the following 2 stitches. And just continue repeating that around. When you look at the written pattern or any instructions, even listening to me describe this to you, it's hard to describe this method of increase and then single crochet 1, 2, 3, whatever designated number, without using a whole lot of words. And crochet patterns already look very confusing, even to experienced crocheters, let alone beginners. So when we write down crochet patterns, we try to use as few words as possible just so that it's not overwhelming. But sometimes the trade-off is that there's not enough words there and you need a visual, you need someone explaining it to you informally, and that's where these video tutorials really come in handy. But I hope that I'm helping to make some sense of that kind of alphabet soup that crochet patterns often can be. So don't get frustrated when written patterns don't have loads and loads of extra explanation. They're really trying to just keep it as simple as possible so that you can read the abbreviations and just get in there and get it done and not get overwhelmed. So now we've finished all the way around. Round 4 should have increased again by 6 stitches, so we should have 24 here in round 4. Remove your stitch marker to move on to round 5. This is going to be the last of our increasing round, so you're almost there. We're going to increase in the first stitch as we've been doing, and you might be getting the pattern by now. Instead of continuing with anything we've been doing, again, replace your stitch marker, don't forget. We've worked an increase, now we're going to single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So that looks like increase, single crochet 3. So now we're working 1 single crochet in the first, second, and third stitches after that increase. So we can see here we have increase, 1, 2, and 3. 1 in each of those stitches. Repeat that around. We should also always wind up with 6 sets of whatever our repetition is. So whatever our sequence is that we're repeating, our increase and then single crochet 3, we should be working that set 6 times because we started off with 6 stitches. And we've been working from that. That's also why we're increasing by 6 for each round. So if at any point those numbers aren't adding up, you're not working 6 sets of that repetition, you're not working an increase by 6 each time, or your stitch count gets off, just rip back that 1 row and try it again. You might be skipping a stitch somewhere, adding an extra increase. It can get a little confusing when you're increasing so much and working these flat circles, especially at first. But once we get this round done, will be kind of good to go to do a lot more mindless crocheting, at least until we get to that heel at the end. So that's great news. So here we are, row 5. We should wind up with 30 stitches at the end of this round. Always make sure to count your stitches. That's one thing that a lot of crocheters really hate, to stop the flow and stop and count, let alone, take note of it or glance back at the pattern. But it really will mean the difference between your stocking being, looking like a stocking and your stocking looking like a droopy sock or like way too short and fat, or all these different weird shapes that we get when we don't count. So I'm victim to it. Sometimes I don't feel like counting and then my project doesn't come out right. So even I have to stop and count, even though sometimes it's annoying. Okay, so here we are finishing round 5. And we should still have a flat circle.